In the heart of the dense, untouched wilderness, a group of friends set up their campsite. Their laughter filled the air as they shared stories around the crackling campfire. The moon shone bright, casting eerie shadows among the trees. It was meant to be a weekend of bonding and adventure, a getaway from the stresses of everyday life. As the night deepened, the campfire's glow offered little comfort against the vast darkness that surrounded them. Despite their bravado, unease began to creep into their hearts. The distant rustling of leaves and the hooting of owls seemed to take on a sinister tone. Amidst nervous laughter, one of the friends, Sarah, shared a local legend she'd heard about the woods they were camping in. It was said that a hermit once lived here, a recluse who had vanished without a trace. People claimed to hear his voice echoing in the wind, a haunting reminder of his solitude. As the fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on their faces, the friends laughed off the legend, dismissing it as a mere ghost story. They retired to their tents, zipping themselves in against the chilly night. But outside, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if anticipating something that lingered just beyond the edge of sight. Unbeknownst to them, their wilderness retreat was about to take a chilling turn. The first echoes of unease were beginning to settle in their minds, like seeds of doubt that would soon sprout into a nightmarish reality. Inside their tents, the friends tried to shake off the growing sense of unease. The forest was alive with strange noises, branches snapping, twigs crunching, sounds that were normal in the wild, but now seemed amplified, unsettling. As the night progressed, sleep remained elusive. The soft murmur of conversations drifted between tents, as each person grappled with their growing unease. Shadows danced on the tent walls, casting odd shapes that seemed to twist and contort in unnatural ways. In the midst of this eerie stillness, a distant howl pierced the night. The friends fell silent, their hearts skipping a beat. The howl was unlike anything they'd heard before, a haunting mix of desperation and anguish. They exchanged nervous glances, their imaginations running wild with possibilities. Torn between curiosity and fear, one of the friends, Mark, suggested venturing into the woods to investigate. Some protested, while others hesitated, but eventually, curiosity won out over caution. Armed with flashlights, they stepped into the dark, the forest enveloping them in its cold embrace. The woods seemed to come alive around them. Every rustle of leaves and every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines. The flashlight beams cut through the darkness, revealing twisted tree trunks and tangled undergrowth. Mark's voice wavered as he led the way, his bravado waning with each step. Suddenly, their flashlights flickered and dimmed. Panic gripped them as they stood in near darkness, the woods closing in around them. The chilling sensation that they were being watched became overpowering, and a sense of dread settled in their chests. Their initial excitement had turned into a nightmare they couldn't escape. As they strained their ears against the silence, the sound of whispering wind seemed to carry words that weren't meant for their ears. They exchanged anxious glances, the realization dawning upon them that the legend of the hermit might not be just a tale after all. Standing in the darkness of the woods, the friends' unease grew more palpable with each passing moment. The faint, chilling whispers in the wind seemed to carry a message that sent shivers down their spines. Their flashlights flickered back to life, but the feeble beams only revealed a fraction of the surrounding darkness. Mark's voice trembled as he spoke, urging his friends to turn back. But just as they began to retreat, a distant, mournful wail echoed through the trees. The sound was mournful, a haunting lament that seemed to emanate from all directions. Fear paralyzed them momentarily before adrenaline kicked in, driving them to flee back to their campsite. Back at the campsite, the friends huddled together, their eyes wide with terror. They shared their eerie experiences, the whispers, the wail, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. Despite their skepticism earlier, the weight of the legend now bore down on them, suffocating their courage. Their campfire, once a source of warmth and comfort, now cast menacing shadows that seemed to reach out hungrily. The woods felt like a living entity, a malevolent force that sought to keep them trapped in its grasp. Even the night seemed endless, as if time itself had slowed to a crawl. Sleep remained a distant dream, and the night dragged on. Every rustling leaf, every distant sound sent their hearts racing. The forest seemed to close in around them, as if eager to claim them for its own. The nightmarish howls persisted, a haunting chorus that echoed their fear back at them. As dawn approached, the friends found themselves in a twilight zone, caught between the realms of darkness and light. Their weary eyes scanned the tree line, searching for any sign of the morning sun. But even in the dim light, the woods held secrets they were only beginning to unravel. As the first hints of dawn painted the sky in shades of pale gray, the friends felt a glimmer of hope. The night of terror seemed to be coming to an end, and they longed for the safety of daylight. However, as they began to count heads, they realized that one of them was missing, Mark. Panic swept through the group as they searched the campsite and its surroundings. Mark's tent remained unopened, his sleeping bag undisturbed. Their calls for him went unanswered, the woods absorbing their voices like a hungry abyss. Dread gnawed at their hearts, and their thoughts turned to the legend of the hermit and the eerie events of the night. Their flashlights in hand, they ventured back into the woods, retracing the path they had taken earlier. The daylight seemed to do little to dispel the sense of foreboding that clung to the trees. The howls had subsided, replaced by an eerie silence that made their footsteps echo through the woods. As they delved deeper, they stumbled upon a peculiar sight, a series of footprints leading away from their path. The footprints were uneven, as if someone had been stumbling or running. The tracks led to a small clearing where they abruptly vanished, leaving the ground untouched beyond. The friends exchanged worried glances, their thoughts racing with possibilities. Had Mark encountered something sinister during the night? Was he now lost within the depths of the woods, a victim of the very legend they had laughed off? The feeling of being watched intensified as they continued their search. Every rustling leaf seemed to whisper Mark's name, a haunting reminder of their friend's disappearance. The woods had become a labyrinth of uncertainty, their footsteps echoing the footsteps of those who had ventured here before them. In their quest to find Mark, the friends were beginning to realize that the woods held secrets that defied explanation. The line between reality and legend had blurred, and they were now entangled in a nightmare they couldn't escape. As the hours passed and their search for Mark continued, the group's exhaustion grew more pronounced. Fear had taken its toll, and their nerves were stretched thin. The forest seemed to tighten its grip on them, its shadows concealing secrets that threatened to engulf them. Every rustle of leaves sent their hearts racing, and every broken branch seemed to echo with Mark's absence. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing twisted trees and gnarled roots that seemed to writhe in the dim light. Their footsteps were heavy with the weight of uncertainty, each step taking them deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it a whisper that seemed to slither through the air. The friends froze, their eyes darting around, searching for the source of the sound. The wood seemed to hold its breath, as if it too was waiting for something to reveal itself. Out of the corner of their eyes, they caught glimpses of movement, shadows that danced at the edge of their vision. Their flashlights flickered, casting erratic beams that painted the trees in eerie patterns. The feeling of being watched intensified, and the woods seemed to come alive with unseen eyes. Heartbeats quickened as the friends realized they were not alone. The shadows, once mere tricks of the light, had taken on a sinister life of their own. Whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to overlap and blend into an incomprehensible symphony of dread. In their desperation to find Mark, the friends pressed on, each step heavy with trepidation. The forest seemed to warp around them, the path ahead shifting and changing as if mocking their attempts to escape its clutches. Fear gnawed at their sanity, and the boundary between reality and nightmare blurred even further. As they continued their search, they couldn't shake the feeling that the woods were toying with them, leading them deeper into a maze of uncertainty. The shadows grew longer, the whispers grew louder, and the truth of their situation became clearer. Something malevolent was lurking within the heart of the forest, and they were its unwitting prey. The woods had transformed into a labyrinth of fear, and the friends were trapped within its chilling grasp. With every step they took, the feeling of being watched grew more oppressive, the unseen eyes bearing down on them like a weight. The whispers in the wind had escalated into an unintelligible cacophony, filling the air with an unsettling presence. As night began to fall once again, the friends found themselves in a clearing they didn't recognize. The trees loomed tall around them, casting elongated shadows that seemed to reach out with sinister intent. The sky was shrouded in a canopy of darkness, the stars obscured by the thick canopy. A mournful howl pierced the silence, its sound echoing through the woods. It was a sound that seemed to originate from the very heart of the forest, a howl that carried an unmistakable sense of sorrow and malevolence. The friends exchanged anxious glances, the realization dawning upon them that they were not alone in this labyrinth of terror. As the howl continued, its eerie resonance seemed to draw the shadows closer. Flickers of movement darted at the edges of their vision, elusive figures that disappeared whenever they tried to focus on them. Panic gnawed at their sanity, and the forest itself seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. With each passing moment, the friends felt as though the woods were closing in around them. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to shift, as if guiding them further into the depths of this nightmare. The howl continued, its mournful notes mingling with the whispers that now seemed to emanate from every direction. Desperation drove them to call out for Mark, their voices wavering in the oppressive silence. The howl responded, its pitch rising and falling as if in response to their pleas. The message was clear: the forest held their friend, and it was not willing to release its hold. As the haunting howls of the night continued, the friends were faced with a chilling truth. The forest was no longer just a backdrop to their camping trip, it had become a sentient entity, a malevolent force that sought to keep them captive within its depths. The darkness was alive with secrets, and the friends were mere pawns in a game they couldn't comprehend. As the haunting howls of the night gradually faded, the friends were left in an uneasy silence. The darkness held them in its grip, and the forest seemed to wait with bated breath. Exhaustion had taken its toll, and their minds were teetering on the edge of paranoia. With the first rays of dawn, the woods began to reveal their secrets. The clearing in which the friends had found themselves was not a natural feature, it was marked by odd symbols etched into the ground. The symbols were unfamiliar, intricate designs that seemed to radiate an otherworldly energy. Fear mingled with fascination as they studied the symbols, a sense of foreboding settling in their chests. What purpose did these markings serve? Were they a key to understanding the mystery that had consumed their camping trip? The realization that the forest itself was orchestrating their ordeal was both terrifying and surreal. As they examined the symbols, they noticed something else, a faint trail leading away from the clearing. The trail was barely visible, as if deliberately concealed by nature itself. Driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, they followed the trail, their flashlights cutting through the dim light of the morning. The trail meandered deeper into the woods, leading them to a hidden grove. There, they stumbled upon a circle of weathered stones, arranged in a pattern that echoed the symbols they had seen before. The air was heavy with an otherworldly presence, as if the very fabric of reality had grown thin in this unholy place. As they stood in the grove, the haunting howls of the night seemed to echo once again. The stones themselves seemed to vibrate with an energy that sent shivers down their spines. In the center of the circle lay an old journal, its pages yellowed with age. With trembling hands, they opened the journal and began to read. The entries spoke of rituals, of communing with forces beyond their understanding. They spoke of a hermit who had sought power in the heart of the forest, only to become ensnared by the very forces he had sought to control. The journal held a warning, a plea for those who came across it to turn back, to leave the forest untouched. But the friends were beyond the point of no return. The forest had claimed them, and its secrets were now woven into their fates. As they closed the journal, a new sense of dread settled over them. The forest had revealed a glimpse of its malevolent history, and they were now ensnared within its web of darkness. The symbols, the howls, and the shadows, all were pieces of a puzzle that seemed to have no escape. The friends stood in the grove, the weight of the journal's revelations settling upon them. The forest had become a labyrinth of malevolence, a place where the lines between reality and nightmare were hopelessly blurred. The symbols and stones spoke of ancient rituals, of a hermit's attempt to wield power beyond comprehension. As they returned to their campsite, the unease that had plagued them before seemed to intensify. The forest was no longer just a backdrop, it was a living entity, a force that manipulated their perceptions and controlled their fate. Every rustling leaf, every fleeting shadow was a reminder of the darkness that surrounded them. Desperation drove them to search for Mark once again. Their calls echoed through the woods, unanswered and swallowed by the oppressive silence. The sun cast long shadows as it began its descent, and the friends felt the weight of time slipping away. They knew that if they didn't find Mark soon, he might become another victim of the forest's malevolent power. Their flashlights cut through the gathering darkness as they ventured deeper, their hearts pounding with each step. The grove and its unsettling symbols seemed to taunt them from the edges of their vision. Whispers still lingered in the air, carried by the wind that rustled the leaves. As the night fell once more, their determination turned into desperation. They stumbled upon a clearing they hadn't seen before, a place marked by a gnarled tree with twisted roots. Beneath the tree lay a pile of belongings, including Mark's backpack. The sight sent a chill down their spines. Mark's belongings were scattered as if he had dropped them in haste. A sense of urgency gripped them as they searched the area, their flashlights revealing no trace of their friend. And then, just as their hope was beginning to fade, they heard it, the haunting howl that had become a sinister refrain in their nightmare. It was a cry that seemed to carry with it a plea for release from the darkness that held them all captive. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, they followed the howl's mournful call. It led them deeper into the heart of the forest, where the trees seemed to close in around them. The night was alive with the sounds of the wilderness, but beneath it all lingered the presence of something ancient and malevolent. As they pressed on, they knew that they were nearing a confrontation that could mean salvation or damnation. The forest held the answers to their questions, the secrets to their friends' disappearance. But whether those answers would lead to their escape or their demise remained to be seen. The friends continued their relentless search, their determination outweighing their fear. The haunting howl still echoed through the night, a sound that seemed to tug at their very souls. With each step they took, the forest seemed to close in around them, the trees bending and twisting as if trying to bar their path. As they followed the howl's mournful call, they stumbled upon a clearing that felt eerily familiar. It was the same clearing where they had found the symbols etched into the ground. The stones were still arranged in a circle, their energy pulsating like a heartbeat. But something had changed, the stones were glowing faintly, casting an ethereal light that painted the clearing in an eerie glow. The howl grew louder, resonating with a sense of urgency. In the center of the circle stood Mark, his eyes vacant and his body swaying as if in a trance. Their voices trembled as they called out to him, their words carrying a mixture of relief and fear. Mark's gaze turned toward them, but his eyes held an emptiness that chilled their hearts. His voice, when he spoke, was not his own, it was a haunting echo, a voice that seemed to belong to the very forest itself. The friends watched in horror as Mark's body convulsed, as if struggling against an unseen force. The symbols on the ground seemed to writhe and twist, their energy intertwining with Mark's very being. It was as if the forest was claiming him, consuming him in its insidious grasp. As they approached, the stone's glow intensified, casting strange patterns of light on Mark's skin. The howl grew louder, reverberating through the clearing with an almost tangible force. The symbols seemed to pulse in time with Mark's erratic movements, a sinister dance of darkness and light. With a sudden, chilling clarity, they realized that Mark had become a vessel, a conduit for the very forces that had haunted their camping trip. The hermit's journal had warned of the forest's power, of its ability to ensnare those who dared to enter its realm. Mark was no longer himself, he had become a part of the forest's malevolent history. Torn between the instinct to flee and the desperate desire to save their friend, the friends felt the weight of their choices bearing down upon them. The forest had revealed its true nature, its ancient rituals and haunting howls a testament to the darkness that had been awakened. As they stood in the clearing, surrounded by symbols and shadows, they knew that they were facing a choice that could seal their fate. To confront the forest's power meant delving deeper into its malevolence, to risk becoming a part of the very legend they had laughed off. But to turn away meant leaving Mark trapped within its grasp forever. The haunting howl intensified, filling the air with an otherworldly resonance. The choice was theirs to make, to confront the forest's power and challenge its hold, or to retreat and leave behind the echoes of their friend's anguish. The haunting howl reverberated through the clearing, a haunting reminder of the choices that lay before them. The symbols on the ground pulsed with an unnatural energy, as if urging them to make a decision that could alter their fate forever. Their hearts raced, their minds a whirlwind of fear and determination. Gathering their resolve, the friends stepped forward, their eyes locked on Mark's vacant gaze. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the very air charged with an otherworldly tension. The symbols glowed brighter, casting their light on Mark's motionless form. With voices that trembled but carried a fierce determination, they began to speak. Their words were a plea for Mark to fight against the darkness that held him. Memories of their friendship, shared laughter, and the bond they had formed became a lifeline, a thread that connected them to the person Mark once was. The howl seemed to falter, its mournful notes quivering in the air. The symbols' glow flickered, as if the forest itself was wrestling with their words. Mark's vacant expression wavered, and for a brief moment, his eyes seemed to clear. His voice, though still distant, carried a glimmer of recognition. As they continued to speak, their voices united in a chorus of love and desperation, the forest's hold seemed to weaken. The stone's glow dimmed, the symbols losing their pulsating rhythm. The howl faded, replaced by a heavy silence that held the promise of release. Mark's body swayed, his struggle evident as the forest's grip loosened. The echoes of the past, the hermit's rituals, and the malevolent power seemed to recede like a tide retreating. The symbols on the ground lost their luster, their energy dissipating. And then, with a final, shuddering breath, Mark collapsed to the ground. His eyes, once vacant, now held a flicker of awareness. The forest seemed to sigh, as if releasing a long-held breath. The friends rushed to Mark's side, their relief palpable. As dawn broke, casting its soft light over the clearing, the friends felt a sense of catharsis. The forest's power had been challenged, its malevolence confronted. Mark was free from its grasp, and they had emerged from the ordeal with a newfound strength, a bond that had been tested by darkness and emerged unbroken. The woods that had once been a place of mystery and terror were now bathed in the light of morning. The symbols had faded, the haunting howls silenced. The friends helped Mark to his feet, their eyes filled with gratitude and a deeper understanding of the bond that had saved them from the abyss. As they left the clearing behind, their footsteps carried them out of the heart of the forest. The legend of the hermit and the malevolent power would linger, but they had defied its grip. The camping trip that had begun as a retreat into the wilderness had transformed into a battle against the unknown, a battle that had ultimately led them to each other. And as they emerged from the woods, they knew that the echoes of their ordeal would forever shape their lives. The haunting howls and sinister symbols would fade, but the memory of their courage and resilience would remain, a testament to the power of friendship and the strength to confront even the darkest of nightmares.